Okay, and we're back again. Take two. And you didn't get to see take one, but here we are. So we're actually going to use a single microphone in this episode. It's our first episode from the actual office, which will be our podcast studio, which is here kind of behind us, right? We still don't have the setup done yet. What you need to know is that we're not doctors or therapists, but we are VIPs, very important people. But you should not take what we say as medical advice. Always consult your physician and all that good stuff. The second thing that you should know is that because we will be sharing a mic, if you hear Stacy make a comment, it's going to sound like an echo until I hand her the mic. Okay? And we're just going to rock and roll with this episode. So, Stacy, what do you want to say to the beautiful people, the listeners, watchers, and consumers?
Well, I think if there was ever an episode that needs to be watched, it's this one. You want to watch us try to safely make it through this podcast without injury. This is the one you want to watch. I'm not saying that I might get hit in the face with a microphone. I'm confident that might happen. Not on accident, at some point during this podcast. Welcome. Also, since we are in the new studio, we are asking for listener help. If you're not watching on YouTube, that's sad to be you. We need some help finding chairs or a love seat or something behind us to fill this space. It has been a little bit problematic at finding what we want. So what do you want to see us sit on while we record this? Send it to us. Make it appropriate, please. Like, don't send us dumb stuff.
I was going to say, that's a dangerous question.
I heard it when I said it. I was like, let's qualify this. I also know our clients and what might be sent our way. So practical. If you've seen it on another podcast and you're like, hey, you guys need this, send it to us, please.
Bingo. So, first podcast in the HQ, North American HQ, as we like to call it, Texas HQ, Fortify Health Coaching Home. We are talking about something very particular today, very special, very unique. And it is a protocol that we have learned as the flush. Okay. This is an anti-inflammatory metabolic, what do we call it? Metabolic what? Reset. Anti-inflammatory metabolic reset style of protocol, formally described as a souped up detox. Now, all of those things are accurate descriptions. However, as soon as I said detox, many of you had PTSD flashbacks to pooping yourself for 7 days on a juice cleanse. And if I'm wrong, then you can let me know. But this is a way of reducing the inflammation in your body, helping you clear things through the liver. Yes, your liver is your detoxification organ. There's nothing wrong with it. We're just giving it a little help, open it up a little bit, reducing some of the common offenders, and getting you to rest and digest, right? Getting you to reduce your training a little bit, getting you to walk a little bit more, getting you to take some breaths, getting you to go to sleep, all that kind of stuff, right? So during the flush, which is about a 2 to 4 week period, depending on the person, right? This is the first phase of the person's overall journey and how we coach people, right? And so during the flush, people go through. Wow, that was a little bit more random. I'm okay, everybody. People will experience those first 3-4 day symptoms, right? Headaches, a little bit of maybe nausea. They're going to the bathroom all the time, right? We ask people to drink a lot of water on this protocol. Got to go poop on this protocol. Like, that's part of it. That's how we get, that's phase 3 of detoxification. We got to get it out of the house, right? Get to that analogy in a minute. And so the thing that we want to talk about today is Stacy and I are getting ready to do it together for the first time. Now, we have done it separately several times, but now that she's here and I get to coach her in person, then we're going to do it together, but for different purposes. So today we're going to talk about what a little bit more of principles of the flush, because there are principles of it. There's products that are necessary, and there's practices that we use to try to make the experience as beneficial as possible. And then talk about something that we have for everybody to experience the flush coming up in 6 weeks time, something like that. So I'm going to give the mic to you. I want you to tell everybody your purposes behind flushing now, what you've experienced before, all the 411 on your scenario.
Okay, so why now? One, we're together, which makes this so much easier. We've run this twice before. The first time we did it, I loved it. And I actually didn't do it for 2 weeks. I did it for 3 weeks. And I didn't know that I could feel so good. And mind you, like, this is my job. And I went from a macro style nutrition plan to really eating more calorically than we ever had before. We pulled all of my training, which previously I was an overtrainer, and I would use training as a way to really manage my stress. And it's actually, training isn't a helpful way when you overtrain to manage your stress. Stress systems can't adapt. And so we got to a point where my body wasn't adapting in regards to fat loss the way we wanted. And we're like, hey, there's other things going on in your life. Let's pull this. So a year and a half ago, first time?
Yeah.
Year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And then we ran it at some other point in time. I can't remember why we did. And now that we're here together, we have really specific goals in navigating not only physique goals that I have, but restoring the systems of my body, especially from a hormonal perspective. So when Justin said we are doing this for different purposes, very much so. So I have more hormonal support in what I'm going to be doing for the next 2-3 weeks than he is. I mean, do you have really high estrogen levels? Or is your estrogen kind of bothering you right now?
Not that I know of. Not to my knowledge.
I don't think so. Which I do. So for right now, we have the opportunity for something we've waited a really long time for, not only to push me physically as an athlete, but to get more of the parasympathetic function, that rest and digest, out of my body, and get the hormones to behave as they are designed to behave. And I think that is one of the things that I don't want people to miss when they're hearing this. Detox has become such a buzzword that, like, oh, I'm going to do this protocol for 2 weeks and I'm going to lose all of this weight. And that's not that. If that's what you're looking for, don't come here. First of all, we aren't those coaches. We're not going to support you in that. We tell everybody who trusts us to be their coaches that working with us is really a 1 to 2 year long process. I mean, he and I are about 2 years in, and we are fine tuning. We are at the place fine tuning where we're headed, fine tuning what we want. So for me, this is the foundation of a reset that allows us to springboard everywhere we want to go. But this is a huge piece to lay the foundation so that we can build on top of everything else. There's no way to skip this piece. And that's what I see people so often do. Like, oh, I want this physique goal. Okay, well, you can get it, but can you maintain it for 5 years? Or what is your sex drive like? What are your relationships like? Are you even a decent human? Can I see your cortisol levels? Are you even enjoying life at all? And so to do this means that we pull back for a moment so that we can do everything else for the long term. And one of the things that Justin has continually reminded me, especially in being together for the last month side by side, is that we're not training for today. We're training for the long term. And that's a mindset shift for me, because when I get the opportunity to go train, not that it has to be like a PR every time, but I'm going to give everything I have in that workout as it is written. So if you write it, it's getting done. If you tell me to do less, it better not be on the board. That's a pivot for me. Like, I'm learning, like, the timer went off. just so you know, this morning when we were training, and you're like, hey, finish this last 2 by yourself. The timer went off, but I finished. I didn't stop when the timer went off because I wanted to finish everything as it was written.
How many reps did you have left? How many reps did you have left?
I had 5 burpees left.
Oh, no problem.
But I wasn't going to stop at 45 minutes.
No, why would you stop with 5 reps left?
I don't know, because you're working on getting me to like stop when I say stop.
I don't know. Technical difficulties. So what Stacy's alluding to is she's working on understanding stimulus, not going hard every single time that you can. Like I said, you're training for today, you're eating, or you're training for tomorrow, eating for tomorrow, you're sleeping for tomorrow. That's just a shorthand way of saying understand stimulus versus intensity. So that's where you're still trying to wrap your head around, is like, you don't have to go. The stimulus may not be go as hard as possible, get your heart rate as high as possible, go as fast as you can, and pick a weight that's super challenging. That might not be the stimulus. The stimulus may be, let's focus on control. Let's focus on consistency and repeatability in the efforts. Like if you're going slower on round 3 than you were on round 1, well, then we need to adjust the stimulus a little bit, right? So the stimulus, every single time that you do something, it doesn't mean you put less effort into it. I think that's what's confusing for everybody, not just you or me, or but everybody listening, is there's a difference between stimulus and like the intended stimulus and the effort level you put into getting that intended stimulus. Okay. So for example, let's talk about the flush that we're talking about here. And I'll get into, why I'm joining you, like my purposes behind doing it right now. The intended stimulus is rest and digest. It's parasympathetic. If you're a nervous system nerd, we'll have a group, nervous system nerds. It's parasympathetic. Okay. It's the opposite of fight or flight. We're trying to feed you more because you cannot heal a functional issue in a calorie deficit. There is only one thing that gets better in a calorie deficit, other than trying to lose weight, right? It's from a functional standpoint, is insulin sensitivity. So trying to make you more insulin sensitive, we do have to have a calorie deficit to achieve that to some degree. But everything else needs plenty of energy, needs plenty of calories. Okay. So we're not feeding you less, we're feeding you more in this process. But my point here is that the intended stimulus is rest and digest, is a surplus of calories for most people, is not training every day and getting in some regenerative activity. I was going to say leisurely. It's not necessarily leisurely, but regenerative activity, things that are going to help you to thrive, not just get by today, right? Foods that are designed to lower your inflammation. So that's the intended stimulus. If your stimulus is trying to eat as little fat as possible, like if that's what you see as your high effort level, is like, I'm going to eat few carbs as possible and low fat foods. Well, that's a great effort if you're trying to go into a calorie deficit and you're trying to control food to some degree. That's a great effort, but that's the wrong direction that we're going, right? That's effort in the opposite direction. That's not the intended stimulus here. So you're missing the mark. You're trying really hard, but you're missing the mark. So it's just like when you say, don't write on the board if you don't want me to do it. Okay. We just need to have a little get together before the workout starts to say, here's today's intended stimulus, right? Coach's notes is what I call them. It's like, here's the coach's notes, right? Whoever wrote this workout, what was the intended stimulus of this thing? Because if it's to go all out as hard as you can until the time is up, then that is one way to do the workout. There's another way to do it though. And if you are nursing an injury like you are, right? Or if you are trying to build capacities in certain aspects of your fitness, going hard is not always the answer. Sometimes it's, how consistently can I make this feel good, right? How can I stay in a zone of like that feel good zone, push my threshold a little bit, but still stay in that feel good zone where I'm not laying on the floor in blood, sweat, and tears at the end of it, right? That's okay to go to that place, but going to that place every single workout, for the average person, the person who doesn't have a competitive goal in mind, like they want to literally compete in this thing, if we're talking about CrossFit or bodybuilding or a specific sport like triathlon or something like that, And for most people, it doesn't matter what the workout is. It literally makes no difference what the workout is. It's what's the intended stimulus of the day, right? And if you're checking off a variety of stimulus throughout the week and you're staying uninjured and you're staying generally healthy in terms of your energy levels, that's the stimulus conversation. Not to get into much of a tangent.
It wasn't a tangent, and I'm going to tell you why it's not a tangent. Because if you're listening to this, either somebody shared it with you and like, hey, they're talking to you, or you were attracted to my story or our story together or Justin's story. So let's talk about intensity for a second, because I have a couple clients going through this right now, and they want to get it right. And so nobody is ever going to say that I am not an intense person, that I don't have a lot of passion, a lot of drive. We are working in all of the areas of my life to be a little less, not a little less in a room, not a little less in advocacy, but to be this intense all the time. And it's not, I have to, it's just natural to me. This, how much passion lives in this body, needs to be tamed in seasons. And so when we talk about something like a flush, it's an intentional pull back, which takes more discipline to pull back from something than it does for me to go all out. You put something on the board and I will do even if I was dead on the floor, which we've watched me almost pass out. That is easier for me to push myself there than to show restraint. So if we're going to not tangent at all, I think it was actually perfect, is that if you've lived a life that's demanded you be intense, whether you had a lot of trauma or your job is a first responder or you're married to a first responder, and there's all these things that are driving for your attention all the time, there's a lot of intensity with that, and you can operate at such a keyed up level probably really well until you can't. So us asking to be like, for 2 weeks, could you maybe, would you consider test being really curious about this possibility of eating more than you're comfortable with? And in doing so, you have better capacity and you'll feel better. Would you entertain us for a second? Because the intent actually is restoration, not work. Now, because when I say restorative practices, we're going to be doing yoga. That's some work. We're going to be doing the things that, one, we don't prefer and that we're not the best at on purpose in this process, to not only like detoxify the body systems and support them, but getting out of our own way mentally and emotionally too. So I'd love for your perspective, because most people listening to this are going to be more like my age. They know their hormones are jacked up. They've lived a really stressed out life. They've probably struggled with weight loss, that they can't get this last weight off. They're, perimenopausal, and they're frustrated, and traditional coaching, macro coaching, isn't working for them. And they're about to throw this whole thing out the window thinking that it's their fault. I'm going to guess that most people listening to this are going to fall into that category, which is usually what our clients' face looks like. And we've got some really remarkable male clients who have very business owners, high stress lives that we work with as well. So what I want to share is, this isn't myopic. Like, this isn't only for my demographic, but why it's important to you.
So understand that this is the first phase of a multi-phase process that we take people through that have health outcome goals, like functional health goals. Like they're trying to beat menopause, so to speak, right? Or they're trying to overcome an autoimmune condition, which menopause symptoms look a lot like an autoimmune condition. Or come off birth control. I've helped young women come off birth control with it before. Anything of the sort. They just want to feel better. Okay. It's the first phase. So this is not the end all be all, but it's a great starting point. And if you just did this and nothing else, you would still be in great shape. The thing that people lose in the functional health world, the conversation that they lose, is the physique enhancement piece. A lot of wellness coaches or functional practitioners, like wellness clinics, stuff like that, I don't even really know if I'd put that in that category. Functional health doctors, let's say that, because we're not doctors, don't play well on the internet. But we float in this gray area between the world of people who want to diet and lose weight and see their abs and get stronger in the gym, and people who don't care a whole lot for that, but they can look a little better. Oh, and by the way, they have some hormonal imbalances, right? They're not functioning optimally internally if you look at a lab test and you kind of determine that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of nuance to this conversation that we might not be able to get into today. But my point there is metabolic potential is the goal of the flush. Realizing your metabolic potential, okay? You cannot realize your metabolic potential, i.e. like burn, like have your metabolism be at its peak productivity, which metabolism is basically like your body's ability to turn food into energy or any outside substance into energy, like go through a metabolic process. You cannot optimize that in a deficit. It actually starts to degrade in a deficit, which is why you can't stay in a calorie deficit forever. A deficit means you're using more calories than you're consuming, okay? So we put people in a surplus. We feed them more calories, and they actually they don't gain weight. They end up generally losing some weight because their metabolic potential is higher than they thought it was. They're lowering inflammation, so they're losing some water. They're losing some of that puffiness, right? That's so common with like menopause or perimenopause when you start to have these like wacky estrogen dominant symptoms, right? And they end up losing a little bit of weight and liking how they feel so much better that we continue to feed them at that same calorie level. Now, the reason I'm doing the flush, this is where I'm getting, the reason I'm doing the flush is to realize my metabolic potential. Okay, so let's say, for example, Stacy's going to be flushing on 2,000, 2,200 calories, something like that. I'm going to be flushing on something like 28. Okay, I'm going to be flushing on 2,800 calories. Currently, I do not eat that much. Currently, I might eat 2. I might eat 22, like depending on the day, right? I don't eat as much people think I do. I don't eat enough to support sometimes the activities that I get into because I'm not consistent. I haven't been consistent with that, and I haven't paid like detailed attention to that in several months. My point is I'm going to try to get to my metabolic potential, and then I'm going to do a series of protocols on myself, like going into some deficits, right? Maybe throw in a little bit of fasting here and there, maybe throw in a little bit of putting carbs in and taking carbs out to increase my metabolic flexibility to go from the ability to burn carbs for energy and the ability to burn fat for energy. Okay. So what I'm doing it for is to get to a place metabolically where on the way back down, right? Because you do have to induce some type of deficit and stress to the system in terms of a deficit, and a little bit of more, physical activity or harder training helps as well to try and attain a better physique. Okay. There are also optimal hormone levels that attain a better physique outside of just being healthy. So although this is a nuanced conversation and we're not going to get into every aspect of it on this podcast, I'm doing it for more of a physique enhancement purpose in the short term, like right now. Okay. Stacy is doing it overall for a health, like a health balancing purpose. Now, don't get me wrong. It's going to do similar processes in both of our bodies. She's just going to take a few extra products. They're going to help support a little bit more, removing some of the extra estrogen, circulating estrogen she has in her body. I might take an extra product that's going to help upregulate my thyroid because I know I'm going down into a deficit after the flush is over. And the thyroid is the first thing that drops when you start dropping carbs out. By the way, your thyroid loves carbs. So if you dropping carbs forever and you feel a little bit sluggish or your metabolism's not as fast as it used to be, let's talk. So the biggest thing that I'm trying to get at here is this protocol is designed to be personalized, right? Flexible for the purpose and for the person. So although we are doing it for different purposes, we're going to be doing pretty much the same thing when it comes to activity, when it comes to nutrition, and when it comes to practices like you said, yoga. It's a restorative practices, not necessarily easy. Doesn't mean it's easy. It's restorative because of the way that you're breathing, because of the way that you're allowing things to, like the tissues to release in your body, things of that nature. That's something that Stacy's more educated on than I am. But the point is, we're doing it for a specific stimulus. That's the opposite, or that's a different stimulus than lifting heavy weights, picking up heavyweight stuff off the ground to challenge our muscles to grow bigger, faster, stronger muscles, right? So that was my main point.
So I have a question for you. Does this make it easier because we're doing it together?
Yes and no.
I mean, I'm going to say the no porters, both of us coming off of caffeine at the same time, is going to be a little bit problematic. If this is your guys' first time listening or you haven't been here in a while, we have only been side by side in the same location for a month. And we've set up my home. My husband just got here and my youngest son just got here. We're getting all this newness established. So we're about 2 weeks into our official HQ office space. And we decided, you know what? We have not tested our friendship enough. I think that we should both go without caffeine at the same time, which you do need to know. And we're not ashamed to admit it. We are caffeine addicts. 100%. And oh, I'm speaking for you. That echo was him being in denial over there. But I will also confess that we contribute to each other's delinquency on such a fierce level. Yeah. Like, if I'm stopping to get a nice shaken espresso, why would I not get one for him? This morning, as he came to work, I'm like, I've got your iced coffee ready for you, creamer and all. So what makes it harder for both of us, I think, is both of us not on caffeine, which is going to help us with our communication so much. I can't wait to see who we are. You can take bets on how much we hurt each other's feelings in the next 2 weeks.
Impossible.
Okay, so that's the no. The caffeine is the no. What is your yes?
The yes is the support, right? It's just been like, hey, like, eating turkey again? Yep. Eating turkey again. Eating fish again? Yep. Got your bone broth for the day? Yep. Right? Did you take your supplements this morning? Or whatever. Or like maybe even trading like little tips and tricks about how to make the smoothie more consistent, right? Or taste a different way, right? And we're just talking about aspects of the nutrition piece, but it goes into being able to move together too, because we're both used to moving more intensely, right? We're both used to going hard in the gym, right? Like that's what we like to do, regardless if that's the intended stimulus or not. Sometimes, right? Regardless if it's good for us, we're human beings just like everybody else, and we like to see what we're capable of. If we didn't, we wouldn't have started a business together. So, just we are sharing in that common suffering that is the first few days are they get a little tough, right? The first 3-4 days, like you're gonna have a headache because you're coming off caffeine, like you're pulling out all the processed junk. So you might have like cravings for something, right? Where we challenge people to try to drink 2 gallons the first 2 days, like 2 gallons a day the first 2 days. So just a lot more water than you usually drink. Now, neither one of us will likely reach the 2 gallon mark on either one of those days, but it'll just be more than we're currently drinking. Then we'll pull it back to 1 gallon for the rest of the time. But like that type of stuff, just the commiserating of like peeing again. Yep. Peeing again. Or like, what color's your poop today? That type of stuff. That's the part I'm looking forward to.
I touched the button.
Some people's kids.
If you guys are wondering, yes, we do not just on a flush talk to each other about what color our poop was. That is a part of our friendship. Also, there are some fun things that I try to make hard things fun. I mean, that's also the way that we coach. We coach people who are dealing with really, really hard metabolic issues, hard autoimmune issues, hard female reproductive issues. I don't think we have a client that has ever been attracted to us that had an easy situation, because if they did, they if they wouldn't be with us. I say that because one of the things that we're really good at is taking hard things and bringing fun to them, or some lightheartedness, so they're easier to navigate. Because we're not going to deny, like, 3 days into caffeine, it'll take us about 3 days. We might be a little bit snarky, and our training session is going to be rough, but we're going to do something else we've never done before. Is that I have a juicer, so I have been on Pinterest looking for green juice recipes. So if we are going to have to drink some green juice, we're making it ourselves. Now, you guys don't have to do this. This is just our little thing to make things more fun. I got us a 2-pound bag of loose dandelion root tea, because other people would just order that from the store and it would come in the bag. That's not as fun. We're not doing that. We've got some loose leaf tea. I got a bougie tea maker that lights up, that is like this temperature for this tea. So we're going to make some rituals out of it, and we're going to enjoy it and make the most fun of it as we can.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked is it better together, is because we are offering an opportunity for people to do this together in a group. That, I mean, shared suffering sounds dramatic. I think we like to talk to each other that way because that's kind of sexy to us. We're like, oh, we're going to suffer. It's going to be hard. And we're like, yes. Yes, please. Sorry, that was loud. I got a little excited about that. If it's hard and grueling, we're like, sign me up. I'm here for it. So just because we like suffering and pain, that doesn't mean what this group offering is.
What's the date on that? September the what? 23rd?
Sure.
Is that right? Something like that? So we are inviting you, the listener, the watcher, the consumer, to flush in a group with us. Now, you won't be flushing with us on the one that we're embarking in on starting tomorrow, obviously, because this won't even be out by tomorrow. But the thing that we are offering, we are going to do a group flush. We're going to call it the Fall Flush, not challenge, more of like a Fall Flush protocol. Fall Flush reset. Sure, let's call it that. We'll have a better name, I'm sure, by the time we start actually advertising it. In about mid to late September, and this is going to be a 6-week group offering. Okay. Now, what we are doing, we're going to make it from a price standpoint. We're going to make it accessible to everybody. It's going to come with a plethora of extras. Everybody's going to get their own, a plethora. Yes. Look it up. It's official. Bonuses. Everybody's going to get their own personalized flush plan. We are going to be having a group call every single week. So for the 6 weeks, we're going to educate on something different aspects of the flush, different things that are helpful, right? We'll also have a little bit of a community support chat that everybody can be involved in if they have questions, if they have things that they've done that's been helpful, so they can, again, it's the community effort that helps make the initial flush period easier. And the reason we're doing it 6 weeks, not just the 2, of the flush or whatever, is because we want people to be set up when they go into it, and we want people to be set up as they come out of it, right? Because it's not all about, flushing you up 2,000 calories and then leaving you on 2,000 calories permanently, although some people may need to stay on that amount of food, right? It's about, hey, what did you learn in this experience that you can carry over? Because some things are going to drop off, right? Like in the flush, we utilize fruit juices, okay? Well, not a whole lot of people drink 12 ounces of fruit juice every day. And so, dropping off the juices, for example, right? Or dropping off some of the supplementation. What does this look like after the flush is over with? And so we want to help you continue from a lifestyle standpoint past the point of the flush, right? So we're inviting you to come do this fall flush in late September. We'll have more on our social media about how to sign up, so you don't worry, you're not going to miss that. We'll probably put a email list out there, put email sign up out there so we can send it all via email. Everybody, make sure everybody's got the details and all that kind of stuff. But again, we wanted to make this to educate you first of all on some of the way that we coach people. Right? We put everybody through this anti-inflammatory period, but we think it's good for everybody to experience, because not only is it going to give you a different perspective on like what is the intended stimulus behind getting healthy, right? Even if you're trying to lose weight, starting in a calorie deficit is not what we assume to be the right thing, because you might not be healthy enough to lose weight right off the bat, right? You might lose a little bit of weight if you just go into eating less than you're currently eating, but also we don't generally see a ton of people coming our way, and we could be, biased in the market. We have a ton of people coming our way who have the mental capacity to hold on to whatever results that they achieve long term. So we're going to set your body up, your metabolism up to a point where you're going to realize that metabolic potential, right? Or we're going to get you closer to it before you start doing anything else that the fitness world has to offer, because there's plenty else out there, right? And this is not 2 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever to get the best physique you've ever had. This is not about that, right? This is about making your body and your mind simpatico, right? You like that vocabulary? Man, I got it. Aligning your body and your mind and getting you as healthy internally as we can, trying to relieve a lot of the symptoms that you might have come with, so that you are set up for the next phase, right? You're set up for the next thing that you want to do, right? Hopefully you feel so good after your 2 weeks or after the 6 weeks of the flush, like the flush group is over with, that you're like, man, I can't believe I never thought about this before, right? Or like, I can't believe, like, I thought I didn't like eating fish because fish is part of the protocol or whatever. If you're averse to fish, that doesn't mean don't sign up, right? We can make adjustments. I'm just saying, I never thought about like having this style of nutrition because all I've ever eaten is chicken breast, broccoli, and rice, right? So it can expand your perspective on nutrition, expand your perspective on what internal health looks like, and we'll introduce you to some concepts that you might not be familiar with, or that the internet might have, not been 100% truthful on, when it comes to how do you balance your hormones, or how important is this to eat versus this to eat, what not to eat, and what to eat, those type of things. We want to make sure that we straighten the record on some of those things. And I think that's about it. Anything I'm missing?
Here's what I want to add. If you have followed a macro style of nutrition for the last year and a half or longer, and you're frustrated and tired, this is my direct invitation to you. Just to take a pause for a second and introduce a different stimulus. When you do the same thing for a long period of time, it also becomes comfortable, but without changing a stimulus, it also becomes ineffective. And so what I've seen, especially over the last year and a half, when people get 2 years to about this place, that they think it's them, and it's not necessarily you. And so really, if you're frustrated and wanting just to be curious about, what if I made my health a priority for a moment and put a fat loss goal to the side, I want you here with us. Having done this repeatedly and watching clients have success, it's really the mindset shift to see that they didn't know what was possible become possible, and then it becomes easy again. And so if you're still fighting, you've got your macros, you've got them all tracked, you're doing all the things, you're in the gym, and you are frustrated and stagnant, this is the invitation for something different, just to be curious. You're not going to ruin your progress. I'd be willing to bet actually the opposite, that you're going to get to see a piece of yourself and what your body is capable of in a way that you haven't before. But we also know that this is not the norm. Conversations like this don't happen. And the rest of the nutrition world is really loud in one direction, and we're kind of the voice in the corner, getting louder by the day. Intensity over here. To say it, not loud enough necessarily, but intentionally enough and consistently enough that we start to shift that tide. that this is actually what health looks like when you also want physique goals.
Love it. So, what's next? How do you get involved with this? If you're hearing this, you're like, "Yep, I'm in, Stacy. I like what you're having to say." Is the link in the description of the podcast will take you to a landing page, and on that landing page, there will be a place to enter your information to get on the list for the Fall Flush group, right? Whatever it is, going to have something of that. The title is going to be something to that effect. And that way we have your information, right? Email, name, phone number, whatever, social security number. Just kidding. That we know that you're interested. You want the information. You want to know what's up. Again, you're not committing to anything. All you're doing is say, "Hey, I'm interested. I would love to know more about this," and you will be on the group of emails that get sent out to say, "This is what it is. This is how much it costs." Right? There'll probably be a video of me and Stacy on there, saying something stupid like we always do, right? But making you laugh nonetheless and giving you everything you need to make that decision, right? Like I said, we hope you join us because we think that we know that it's got a lot of benefits for the person who has big goals or the person who just wants to feel better. It can be helpful to both of those people and everyone in between. So until next time, you know what? Until next time, we hope you have a great, fantastic, amazing day, and we will, mark my words, we will have our podcast chairs next time around.
I believe you.
See y'all.